Well, welcome, everybody. I'm Judy Pinolis, Associate Director for Instruction Engagement at the Berkeley Library. And thank you for coming to this webinar on Berkeley and Beyond, free and open websites for music resources, our program to help graduating seniors, faculty, and staff find resources that are free and online. First, I'd like to say that if you are a graduating senior and you live in the United States, don't forget the public libraries. There are very good public libraries in each and every state, and many have digital access for state residents. Anyone living in Massachusetts can access the Boston Public Library resources by obtaining an e-card at thebpl.org. This talk is called Accessing Jewish Music Resources Online, an Introduction to Online Scores and Sound Recordings. Most of the materials I'm examining today are located in American or Israeli libraries, but there is also a treasure trove of materials available in European libraries as well. Today's discussion will cover scores and sound recordings, but not other Jewish types of music materials housed in libraries and archives. We'll start by looking at a few places that will help you, the researcher, find the right place to look for open access materials. The way I'd like to do this is present a run through very quickly of my slides, and then we'll have hopefully some time left over for questions. And at the end, you can also see that I will have a QR code where you can get all the links in a document that I've made for you to have all the links of everything that we go over today. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, well, you see a QR code and that will lead you to a Google Doc with all the links of today's presentation.
Great.
And today, free and open, are scores and sound recordings. I'm going to cover scores first and then go to sound recordings. But also remember that there are many excellent archival collections that can be visited in person or online. And for many of you, finding a good archival resource can start with Archive Grid. If you don't know about Archive Grid, this is an excellent way to do searches for about people that you might be investigating, or different kinds of subject matters. And also, WorldCat is an excellent source for finding where books are that you could look for, and through your local library, request on interlibrary loan if they're not in your local library. And then also remembering that many journals are free and online through the digital directory of open access journals. So there's lots of ways to get materials if you don't have access to an academic library. So online scores, these are the featured sites today that I'm going to take a look at. There are many, many more sites with online scores, but these have some of the larger collections that we'll investigate today and take a look at their collections. So starting with Library of Congress, the National Library has the Yiddish American Popular Sheet Music Collection. And this collection really was started by Lawrence Marwick, and Irene Heskes later really started cataloging it all and made an entire index of all the materials there. And this collection is the actual materials where you can get the sheet music fully online too. And it calls it the Yiddish American Sheet Music Collection, but it does contain items that are in Hebrew and English as well as Yiddish, and both sacred and secular songs. So most are from the Yiddish theater, but there is other music in this collection, and it's just under this collection that's called the Yiddish American Sheet Music Collection. And this is what you'll find when you go into a record and see that you can have very good quality scans of the original scores in the collection, and they're very, very good to, you can download them or work with them. The other National Library we'll look at today is the National Library of Israel, and it has a search for music as a limiter in its search bar, main search bar at the National Library. I go to the English language search in the National Library, and you have to have that EN at the end. If you go to the National Library, just look for the icon for world and then choose the English. And then here you'll see that you can find the music. And one of the things that was a little daunting sometimes is to know exactly where to look for the scores. So here they have an icon that opens up your navigation bar, and I've circled it. This is what it looks like to click on this icon, and that will open the navigation bar that you see here. And then one of the things that's a little bit different than American libraries is called musical notes. So if you weren't familiar with that when looking for scores, that's the terminology that they're using to find the actual scores is musical notes. And in the National Library, you can find manuscripts, and they're in very good quality scans of those. But the full thing, you can choose any page, look at it by page, these thumbnail sketches, and go directly to a section you want or access to the whole thing. And you'll see that you can print it, you can download, there's all kinds of things. You can embed it in an HTML page. There's lots of things you can do with these scores. They also have published scores from Europe and elsewhere that have very good quality scans. And not only old music, but they have contemporary music scores, published scores in their collection, which is really a wonderful thing that you have access to these newer types of materials. And this may not show up as well, but this is a handwritten manuscript, a score by a composer in Israel. Moving along from the national libraries to university libraries. The first one I'm going to look at is Brown University on our little tour here. It also has a Yiddish sheet music collection. And these originally, Brown they just scanned just the fronts, just the covers, but they went back and they now have the full scores in many of these Yiddish sheet music. And it's a wonderful sheet music collection. Again, a lot of Yiddish theater, American theater. And they also have, different levels where you can have the thumbnail sketch and jump directly to something you want, or the whole thing. The next thing I wanted to point out about the Brown Yiddish sheet music collection, and it's this one collection, the pre-1923, and I suppose that will move up, the public domain sheet music is completely downloadable. You can search by year. This was a nice feature, I thought, especially when people are looking on Yiddish collections. All these materials are in the public domain, and they tell you how many they have of each of these in the collection. You can go right to by year, or you can go to the fully cataloged listings, and not by year, but by, a title or a composer or a lyricist. I mean, there are many ways that you can search the collection. It has full cataloging. And there are several hundred results in the collection. I just like some of these titles. I just wanted to show you some, and I was particularly drawn to the fact that they have, again, still beautiful front covers that people can use for a variety of reasons. And some of which are getting photographs of some of these famous singers. This is a very famous photograph of Regina Prager. I wanted to point that out. And then these kinds of original pieces that came directly from the Yiddish theater, but sometimes we find them out of context in some places. One of the things with these collections is, as you see with the different years, you begin to see the move from Yiddish to Yinglish and English language being used in the music. All of these items can be enlarged so you can clearly see the scores. Very good. So next, school, and this is actually fairly new. It's only been in the last year or so that the University of Pennsylvania has had the collection that moved from Gratz College, and that is the Mandel collection. It's housed at the Kislock Center, but you will find the digitized scores from this collection, which is only a very small portion so far of the entire archival collection of Gratz in the Kalenda digital scores. One of the things that about this is you go to the general Kalenda digital score website, and then you do a search under Gratz Mandel, and that search under Gratz Mandel will give you all the materials from that collection, and that's how you're going to get at it there in terms of finding it. Now, this collection is massive, and it's been recently been organized by Edwin Cerruti and his wife, who have been working very hard to go through the materials, get them in some order, and look at the material. A subsection of materials of the scores was selected for this digital program, and hopefully in the future there'll be more. And it has all kinds of amazing things in it. I was just, scanning through this collection, and it has part books, and this one is interesting. It's if anybody recognizes it, this is the Ma Tovu, and anybody know who the composer is? It's Lewandowski. You're probably familiar with that bass line melody from Lewandowski Ma Tovu. That is actually, this part book came from Berlin, the Yiddish Gemeinde there, but they have the other parts. It's just, this is one I'm showing. They also have cantorial scores. These were actually some very, very fascinating things. They have particular older scores from Europe. I thought this was a pretty interesting. They have basically, a Colbo notebook, which a cantor would have put together all their materials for a particular yearly cycle of services and things like that. And they have a tremendous amount of this. This is like older notation here, handwriting. And then I saw this one. It really captured my attention. And this was a Kol Nidre, and it was by Jacob Frankel. And I said, well, and that name rang a bell, but looking him up on Wikipedia, I gave you the link there. This fellow was in Philadelphia, I'm pretty sure, based on the time, the age of this book, the dating of this book, and the manuscript. I'm pretty sure this is the Jacob Frankel, who was the first Jewish military chaplain during the Civil War. He was America's first Jewish military chaplain. I believe that's the same Jacob Frankel. And that's his hand manuscript. So that's a very interesting find that they have his materials there. And it makes sense, being at Gratz College, that they might have something from a Philadelphia cantor. So I thought that was wonderful. Moving along, this is from the Goethe University Friedman collection. I want to say that this is part of, not only do they, the university, have a tremendous amount of Jewish materials of all sorts, not just music, in their collections, but it is also findable in the Europeana Judaica collection, which is a massive collection of materials that have been digitized from many different libraries across Europe and gathered together that are of interest in Jewish studies. And I like it in the Jewish music. They do have tremendous amount of scores there as well. So this is from the Goethe University. They have the published scores, of course. And then they have so much more. Moving along, I want to go to Florida Atlantic University and point out their Yiddish sheet music collection. So for years and years, I knew about their sound recording collection, but I didn't know about their sheet music collection. And they have several hundred scores, and they're all online, and it's a pretty good collection. So I would say this is a good place to go, not just for sheet music, but they put them in PDFs. So be prepared. That's the way it's been preserved there. Another scan collection is from the American Society for Jewish Music. Now that's in New York. The American Society for Jewish Music is supporting this collection. It was put together by a student, actually, Samantha Zarin. When she was an undergraduate, she started doing that. And she worked with me and Paula Eisenstein Baker, who just recently passed away. So saddened about that. But this collection is not from one university library. What this is Sam went around and gathered materials from the St. Petersburg School, from the composers, from many different libraries, not just one library, and put it together and then scan these, and you'll have the full scores online through this database of scores. It's sort of an interesting idea based on that. So it's basically alphabetical listing by composers, or the score titles, composition titles. And within the scores, she's calling scores is the actual volume, and the compositions may be multiple composition within each score. Okay. So this is what it looks like when you get in there. You have the front covers, and you have this actual scores. And they have very interesting pieces of music in there. Some of the original publications from Europe, and some from later dates by composers who were involved with the St. Petersburg School. If you don't know about that, you can do a quick search on it. It's was a society started in Russia in the late 19th century, and they were interested in Jewish national music and composing art music taken from folk music and other elements of Jewish music. And this is this one was held by JTS. Of course, Solomon Rosowski taught at the school there for a long time. And his name in English will be with a Y when you read about him online. So not only symphonic scores and songs and things like that, but also plays, piano reductions, multiple, let's say 2 pianos, all kinds of things are in this collection. So moving along, I had a lot of examples of that. So some other interesting sites are organizations that have taken upon themselves to put some scores online. Some of them are involved with synagogue music in particular, and I have listed 3 of them here. These are primarily Ashkenazi Jewish and the Chazanut online, but the Sephardi Jews of Amsterdam have their own music and their own type of completely different compositions, and anyone interested in finding something very different can take a look at that. And then Shul Music, this is a site that is dedicated to basically the music that's used in Britain. And it has primarily published scores on these sites. One of the things that are, these are all kind of names that cover, they say you think it's going to be about one thing, and then there's another thing. Chazanut, you don't usually think of that as choral music. However, there's lots of choral music in there. So sometimes you have to look around to see what's in there. And this is one of the reasons I'm giving these different examples is someone might see the name Chazanut online and say, oh, I'm not interested in music of cantors. But then when you go in there, there's all kinds of other stuff. So why I'm telling you this is because there's lots of surprises all the time. They do have some manuscripts in there as well. And older publications from Europe, historic publications. This is a historic Haggadah from Shul Music. Interesting. Not as good. The scans are not quite as good. Now we're going to move to sound recordings and just on time. So, so the National Libraries, again, I did the same organizational thing for sound recordings as with the scores. The National Libraries, the universities, and some organizations that have free sound recordings online. Of course, the Library of Congress has the National Jukebox. And yes, there's a bunch of stuff in there that's early music of Jewish recordings. And I think some of the recordings are very surprising to people that may not be what you expect. So you can take a look and explore that. Now, this National Library of Israel has one of the largest collections of sound recordings online of Jewish music anywhere. There are tens of thousands of recordings of Jewish music in the National Library that are provided online for the public. Now, it's interesting how to find this material. I am going to take you through the part that is what they call the Discover section, and you can see their navigation here, Discover, Visit, Research. Going into the Discover section, and we're going to look at how they've organized it. It may not be how an American might think about it in terms of libraries organization. So I captured here a screen that follows the music part of the discovery area on their library. And then from there, the subheadings are composers and musicians, the daily song, and Jewish music. And you may wonder, what did they mean by Jewish music versus everything else that's in Israel? And this, it appears to be that the way that they've designated this is that the Jewish music are things that may have been from music from Jews from anywhere in the world. And usually it seems to be involved with Jewish religious functions of some sort. So that is their designation on the Jewish music. The composers and musicians seems to be more about people in Israel doing popular music or composition in Israel. So that's how they're dividing it up. So did I skip? I didn't skip one, did I? Okay. So when you go to music and you search, you get lots of results. But they have online within the premises and online in general. And we're going to be limiting it to online in general since many of us in the United States can't get there every day. How do you do that? So you have to choose the just online, And then the types of things you want to do. In this example, I've chosen ethnographic recordings instead of commercial recordings to show you that you can find tremendous numbers of results in terms of different kinds of things. So this is just songs and ethnographic recordings, and these are your limiters here in the left corner. And you got over 1,500 results for just that. Now that's not everything they have. They have tremendous other materials that are not digitized, plus the ones that you can access only in their facility. And then you have these. So this is just a subset of what there is, but it's a nice subset. And what do you get when you go into a record is you can actually play. They have a playing bar here, sound bar, and then you can look at other details about it. And they have full mark records on everything. So everything is fully cataloged, it's beautifully set up, easy to use, and very, very available. Going back into the composer section, composers and musicians, I selected a popular composer that Americans would know, Naomi Shemer. And then you can see different kinds of songs by that composer and play them. So you can go into it and play them, and they have the lyrics available for you. Now moving to universities with large sound recording collections. Many of you will probably have used already the Dartmouth College Jewish collection, and the Jewish Sound Archive at Dartmouth is all digital, and anybody can use it. You have to sign up, and they used to have a registration process, and now you can just register with your social media or with your Google email. So it's really easy to use. And this is the link here to dartmouth.edu. It's djsa.dartmouth.edu. And the Dartmouth Jewish Sound Archive, you can do a quick search and type in a composer or whatever you want, the name of a piece. The thing about a name of a piece is it may not be spelled exactly the same. And they have their own Dartmouth transliteration format for Hebrew language, which is not standard Library of Congress orthography or anybody else's standard. It's just their own thing. So I usually use Composer. So this is what it's going to look like. When you get in there, I did a search on Abe Elstein, if you couldn't guess. This is the results for Abe Elstein, and then they have these different pieces that show up. And then you can go in and click on it and have the piece of music. They also have liner notes for many of the songs and some of the newer albums. So it's a very good, Dartmouth is a very good resource. And I wanted to say one more thing about Dartmouth, and that is for those people who are looking for materials for Hasidim, materials for Jewish synagogue music that was recorded in synagogues, or that is to say, if synagogues produced an LP or a CD or a cassette, many of them have given those materials to Dartmouth to digitize and put online or be part of their collections. So that's where you go for that. FAU, you will remember I said I was surprised or I didn't know about their scores, but I've always, for more than 20 years, been looking at their sound recording archive, which is dramatically one of the large Judaica sound recording collections in the country, and they've put a lot of it available online. And if they have something and it's not digitized and they can digitize legally, they will send you a copy. So now they have the research station registration process, which is very handy. And if you're online, you tell them, you apply, and then you can get access. But there's a lot of materials that are there in the public domain, and they have full tracks of the materials of those items. Some of the tracks that are not in the public domain, they give you the 45-second tidbit or clip of those recordings, and those materials that are in the public domain, they'll give you the whole thing. So that's the way they've worked it out now. Wisconsin. University of Wisconsin has the May Rent collection of Yiddish recordings. The last I checked, there were about 10,000 pieces of music in here. There are probably more by now. And this Mayrent collection was a donated collection by Sherry Mayrent. And since it was almost all on 78s, almost all of it's in the public domain and is online in this collection. It's a massive amount of material for finding Yiddish recordings. So when you go to the libraries and search, you can limit by the collection the Mayrent Yiddish recordings. And then you can do any search you want by composer or title again. And they do have name authority files, so that if you have a variant spelling of the title of a piece of music, you're going to get all of the pieces of music. And they will have, it works just like a catalog. You can retrieve the items list and then click on the item you want, which is very handy. When you get into your item record, you have all your information, that you can download. You can download the information. You can find out more about it. They will give you the copyright statement, whatever you need to know. And they also have all these nice subject headings. So if you have a subject heading that's useful to you, you can click on that and find all the recordings with that same subject heading, of course, just like any other catalog. But it's nice because they do have also the keyword searching. And look here, you see multiple spellings of Freilach just even in this record. They'll give you these titles. Here's Freilach with an I, and here's Freilach with a Y, right in the same record. So I love the metadata. That's beautiful and clean, beautiful metadata at Wisconsin. They have a label image so that if you wanted to see all the pieces of music on the label or download it as an image for yourself, you can, and the sound recording is streamed. The next collection I'd like to talk about is the Milken Archive, and I took the privilege of using a screenshot from my recent exhibit on women's sacred singers that's at Milken. But they have many different videos and pieces of music online. We at Berklee, of course, own the Naxos label as part of our collection. And so we have access, when to the full Naxos label, you have all the Milken Archive CDs that were published. However, when you are ready to look at things that you don't have access to the Berklee Library, you can then go and see some of these same materials online at the Milken Archive. And they also have these nice videos with composers and performers. It's very, very significant amount of material. The U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum in Washington, D.C. Is a major exhibit of music and other materials about the Holocaust. And to find the music is pretty simple. You can pretty much just search for it with the word music and other simple searches to locate the kinds of records that they have of songs and materials in their collection. So I just do some simple searches here, and they have different kinds of fields. And one of them is going to be types of material. So if you go to types of material and click on the pull down menu, you can see that music has these 900 items. And there's also video recordings, audio recordings, many different kinds of historical sound recordings, testimonies. These are all a lot of people talking and being interviewed. The actual music recordings are here. And then, and I'm sure that there's a lot of music in some of those interviews because people sang some of the songs that they remembered. So you can also search for that as well. And these are some of the types of selections you'll find. And you can listen to it right online. And these are wonderful amount of materials that they have. There's also there are many other collections that have materials of Holocaust sound recordings or people who survived the Holocaust. So this is not the only one. And I've covered some of them in my article as well. Moving along, we have teaching tools. And I'm just pointing out one. There are many online teaching tools for people to learn if they are interested in learning chanting Torah or leading a service or anything like that, teaching a child. This is just one that's available, and it runs through the entire service. And for example, I picked out a Haggadah, which is coming up for Passover. And if you wanted to learn how to, you know, 3 different variations of this, that, or the next thing, parts of this, then you could choose it from this tool and then listen to this different variations. It's some of this, there are some websites that have very variant, I would say varied vocal quality on the different types of teaching tools around on these kinds of things. And that's the list of quick list of materials where you can get this, click on this, take a picture with your camera of this QR code. It will give you the link to this document, and it's just a list of everything I've gone over just now. And now we have a few minutes for questions. And if anybody has any questions for me.
Judy, can you show the QR code again? But
Yeah.
Back it up a little bit or
I'm
make your screen smaller. It was too big on my.
Let's see if we can you get that?
Good. Great, thank you.
And I
Judy, will you be,
send
oh,
out
sorry.
everybody a link to the document, and that'll be up on the, it'll be you should be able to access it. I had it open to the world Google document. So you can give out the link if you want to your friends or whatever you'd like to do. It's just a list of links.
Will you be sending a link to this recording of this presentation?
Well, I'm going to find out exactly where this is going to reside.
Because it would be nice to be able to rewatch this stuff.
Yeah, and
some of this has been great. Thanks. Wonderful.
thank you. I hope no, I know that many of you are probably familiar with many of these sites. Hold on one second. So but hopefully there was something new, and certainly a lot of the links are newer in the last few years. They've changed up. People, institutions tend to renew and revise. For example, back when Amanda and I did our presentation in 2017, the Hebrew Song Index and the Yiddish Song Index at the Hebrew University the National Library in Israel were separate indexes, and now they're integrated into the catalog. So these are things that change all the time with institutions. And but once you know it exists, then it's a matter of finding out where is it now. But I think that we have some access to some really, really good materials. I mean, tens and tens of thousands of sound recordings and the National Library. And they're all, very, a lot of interesting things that you would not necessarily think that you're going to run into, but and they also have collected many American materials too. It's not just Israeli or Turkish or something like that. There are many materials that are from Europe, that are from the United States, from everywhere.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
And just thank you so much for this really wonderful and rich presentation. I'm looking forward to sharing it with colleagues and students. I have a question about just your impression or your knowledge of the sort of prevalence of world accessible streaming audio. So we have an audio archive or a sound archive at Stanford, and we provide streaming, 30-day renewable streaming access to music that's under copyright. And Stanford's pretty conservative. Stanford tends not to make that, even though it's streaming, they tend not to make it world accessible. It's only Stanford accessible if it's digitized and,
Right.
streamable. And I was just sort of struck by what looked to me, if I understood correctly, like the prevalence of freely available streaming content of music that's probably in copyright. And I wanted to make sure, is that a correct impression? Or I know that some places probably don't do that, but just based on what you were sharing here, it looked like it was more common than not.
Well, I think that, for example, Florida Atlantic has either gained the copyright permission to do it. They went out and actually got copyright permission for many items that normally you would think by date would be under copyright. So that's what they've done. Secondly, they give you the 45-second clip for the things under copyright, things like that. With Dartmouth, they're requiring a registration. It's not a blanket streaming to the world kind of thing. So they have opened up their website to be used by scholars and others that are outside of Dartmouth, but it's limited. And also they have a very different kind of arrangement because the items are the digital copies are owned, but not the original copies. So there's all kinds of different arrangements at these different places. Now, with Wisconsin, 99% of it's already in the public domain. It's almost an entirely 78's collection. And other collections, for example, I didn't mention the Friedman collection that's at Penn because they don't stream it. Because it's LPs primarily, and they're under copyright. So it isn't available online. So some of the largest collections in the country are not available online at all. There's no digitization because of copyright issues.
Okay, that's helpful.
Yeah, I don't know of anybody who's streaming things illegally. I think that,
I wasn't suggesting it was illegal. I just thought maybe they were being less conservative. So in a way, I'm disappointed that I won't have ammunition for this, but it's that's in keeping with our practices also. So
yeah,
thanks.
If a college is limiting it to people with their domain or their email or password, it's within the bounds of teaching and learning and that kind of thing. So yeah, and we're very conservative at Berklee College in terms of we don't digitize. The only time we had done that was during the pandemic, and when it was not the pandemic, all of that material was removed. So
yeah. I hear you. Okay, thank you so much.
Does anybody else have another question? Oh,
I just wanted to thank you so much, Judy. I was familiar with some of the sources, but a lot of the other resources, particularly the university resources, were not familiar to me. So there's a lot to dig in.
yeah. And if anybody wants other resources that are not particularly online, all, large collections online, but have a lot of materials, in a particular subject area, just let me know. I'll see if I know it, I'll send you the information. There is there's no one database that gives all of this information out, so let's get it around.
Isn't that you? That's, that's why we can't be replaced by AI yet.
Not yet. Yeah, so just keeping up with it, is, a full-time job, it seems, but yeah, so I know that the University of California in Los Angeles is interested and has a lot of recordings, but I don't know of them having those streaming or online. That they're in their collections. So amazingly, we're gonna hopefully end on time despite our troubles with the links at the beginning. I really appreciate everybody coming today. And if you think of things that you want to know later, or that come up, or you have trouble navigating, let me know. And good luck with everything and letting your students know. And thanks so much.
You.
I'll hang on here for a couple of more minutes, and then if anybody wants to or wants to ask a question, and
Judy, I have a question. In your research and the exposure that you got, did you hear and learn about Flori Jagoda?
yes, her materials are in copyright, and I'm not sure if I remember exactly where her papers went, but it might be the Library of Congress.
That's
Do you
what I
know?
thought. Yes.
I don't recall off the top of my head, but yeah, and I remember seeing her in person, and going to her concerts, and she was such a lovely person. I met her several times.
You're very
And,
lucky. I did not.
yes, she was, and she had a protege that is continuing her music and the exploration of Ladino music. And that is one thing I didn't have here, but I wanted to let you know that there's a very large Ladino collection in I think in the Western states, both in Los Angeles. There's the La Archiva at UCLA, which
Hmm.
is reel to reel tapes of Turkish music. And there's also Ladino music that you can hear some of it, uh, snippets online, recordings as part of a linguistic database. Um, and I can send you that. And there's also a a gramophone of Mizrahi music that is out of McGill University. So I didn't have time to mention everything, um, but there's a tremendous amount of other collections out there that are, I think, and gramophone does have some pieces on, because it's 78s, does have some music online as well. But I don't think it's the complete, complete works, the way these
Yeah.
have like the entire piece of music.
Yeah. Well, I'm a big fan of hers. And when I present my Women in World Jazz, she's one of the composers. She's my Jewish representative.
Yeah, I have her recordings going back like LP,
Wow, that's amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing. And language is so, some of her work is in Serbian, and the language is not easy to learn. Not
No,
all of the stuff is Ladino.
that's
Some of
right. Well, she, you know, lived in Sarajevo, so she grew up in a community that was all kinds of cultures mixed together, and her music reflects that.
true. Yeah,
And uh, you know,
yeah.
she was a treasure. And I also worked with Linda Cohn I give you her address, who published um scores of Ladino. They're not free. You have to buy them, but I can give you her name and information about her scores. She was basically one of the leaders of Ladino music in Israel, and she worked there and she published, and she had there were organizations that promoted Ladino music in Israel.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know if you're familiar with her, but I'll get that information to you.
Yeah, whatever you can send me on that topic would be amazing. I will
Oh,
check it.
sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Such a help, Judy. Thank you.